Hi everyone, it's the AI auntie again. When generative AI first came onto the scene, the first promise that was made about our efficiency is that writing with AI is how we supercharge ourselves. But I couldn't identify with it at all because when I'm inspired to write, I don't have the blank page problem. And when I'm not, it means I haven't crystallized my thoughts properly. AI can't assist with either of those situations without substituting for my voice. So it took quite a while for a circumstance to arise where I really thought that writing with AI was going to improve things. And it finally happened because I flew from Singapore to Seattle and I was adopting a very aggressive schedule. I gave myself 3 weeks to vacate a residence that I had occupied for nearly a decade. In the middle of it all, I wanted to commit to a weekly YouTube video drop, 3 times weekly LinkedIn content, and a whole bundle of engagements, appearing as a guest on a podcast, scripting my speech for the upcoming SG60 Voices from the Heart in time to rehearse it with the help of a friend. What's more, I was shopping for new hardware to upgrade my laptop and buy a new desktop. So I know this is a lot of stuff. And I would say I even did this to myself on purpose. I deliberately adopt a really aggressive schedule because I want to test fast, iterate fast, and also to really stress test under real world conditions how AI is able to give me leverage. In terms of my personal writing efficiency, I had a pretty clear problem to solve. My brain was working hardest at 2 a.m. and that's when most of my flow for my latest video on the 42 program was coming in. But that was really the time when I ought to be in bed sleeping. And meanwhile, in the day, I was frenetically packing. So I really didn't have the bandwidth to be sitting at my desk and typing on my computer. What gave me inspiration to try voice typing was that I remembered a LinkedIn post that I had seen a couple of months ago talking about how Whisperflow, which is a startup that focuses on voice-to-text technology, has replaced keyboards as standard issue with their employee laptops with a mic. The thesis statement for this change is that they feel when people delegate work to AI agents, they do it more efficiently by talking to them than by typing. And I guess that's also a proof point for their product. When researching which voice-to-text options I wanted to use, I was really focusing on only one thing, which is I don't want to balloon the number of subscriptions that I have right now. So if I could, I want to use what I have. And so since I'm already on Google Workspace and Google Docs are already available to me, I chose Google Voice Typing to stay within that ecosystem. Let me scroll through my raw voice dump with you, and you can take a look at how that evolved. In the beginning, you can see that everything came out pretty clean. It was pretty faithful to what I was saying. But as time went on, and you can see here, I filled more than 2 pages worth of speech because I wanted to see how it goes with a lot of info. It was starting to make mistakes more often. My theory about why it went off track in this scenario is that it probably ran out of memory. You navigate to Tools, and then you select Voice Typing. What comes out here is a microphone icon, and when you press it, you are going to get a record icon, and that's how you know it starts recording. Just bear in mind one thing. It doesn't record full stops when you end a sentence. Initially, I was pretty freaked out by this and cleaned up the grammar as I went along. The second time I decided, I just spoke to it and let it record everything, just a pure word dump with all its mistakes and all the missed punctuation. And I figured since I'm going to put this into a large language model or LLM, I would just let the LLM clean it up. I haven't played with this enough to develop a strong opinion about which is the better approach. Maybe I will in future. I think local AI is a wonderful tool for writers because it means you aren't training AI with your drafts before you publish whatever you write into the public domain. When you're dealing with sensitive information or just anything that you don't want to become public just yet, then using a local large language model means that all the data that you are feeding into it doesn't have to leave your computer. And there are products where you can interact with local large language models directly on your machine without having to be a software developer. The one that I'm using right now is LM Studio. And as you can see from this window, it behaves pretty similar to ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or your favorite chatbot-based tool. There's so much to unpack about LM Studio. It's going to be the stuff of another video to really do it justice. But already looking at my screenshots here, you can see how I've been using it, chatting with it similarly to how you do with ChatGPT to polish my raw voice dumps. It's configured so you can use exactly the same steps. You upload the raw document, and then you prompt it by telling it that you want it to polish your text and giving it both the context, such as the framework, for example, and the target audience that you want your speech to be aimed at. The two large language models that I used for the previous video and this one were Google's Gemma 4 E4B, which has 7 billion parameters, and Q1 3.5, which has 9 billion parameters respectively. These were the biggest models that I could fit comfortably on my laptop, which has 32 gigabytes of RAM. And my laptop doesn't have a dedicated graphics card, so what I'm dealing with here is Intel Arc integrated graphics on a brand new laptop. You might be able to use bigger models if you have a dedicated graphics card and you have more RAM. I have pre-ordered my desktop, and it's going to have a graphics card with 32 gigabytes of VRAM plus 64 gigabytes of RAM. So that means I'll be able to run 70 billion parameter models. And one of my future videos is going to be comparing the output from models of different sizes, so you can see how this materially affects tasks that you'll be doing in real life. And now on to some philosophical discussions. One of the things I've been asking myself after trying out this new workflow is, do I have to keep doing this all the time? I mean, quite honestly, at the size of the models I've been using on my laptop, I think it's realistic that what I'm getting out of AI is polished, but still relatively generic. And that means I'm going to still spend a lot of time working with the output to edit it and inject my own voice, and especially to focus on the precision of it, that I'm saying what I really intend to say. So the way I'm seeing it right now is that AI expands my options. When I'm not really feeling the momentum to type words on a keyboard, then I can use voice to get the ball rolling and start scripting. Sometimes it helps because when words start popping into my mind, I can be really stream of consciousness about that. In the last 2 weeks, I've done both actually. Both of my YouTube scripts were done through using voice to do the voice dump and then having AI give me a first draft that I then rewrote pretty much bottom up, but with the basic skeleton that the AI gave me. And in the middle, I've drafted a full 10-minute speech for SG60 Voices from the Heart. That was just using old-fashioned typing, sitting in a cafe, and that took me about 2 hours or less. So for me, I admit that being self-employed, I'm going to have a lot of freedom in terms of how I use AI. My volume of usage doesn't have to be a KPI. So my goal is really to use the approach that organizes my thoughts the fastest based on where my energy and momentum are going. I mean, after all, for me, my KPI is whether I produce useful and frequent content and whether what I have to share is going to help others. How are you using AI while preserving your authentic voice? For next week's video, I'm going to switch gears and go back to 42 Singapore and the Persine. I'm going to focus about what people in my demographic, which means people who are middle-aged in their 40s or 50s, who are mid-career or even late in their careers. And I'll talk about how I'll configure my content and coverage of the Persine to make it useful for people in this demographic. This is a long random walk, the channel that aims to fill the upskilling info gaps that nobody talks about. See you next week with more content coming your way.